Chapter 1526. He abruptly opened his mouth, and countless violent energies swept over. All of them entered his body. What did it mean that they couldn't be directly absorbed by the meridians in his body? At this moment, all of them had been refined into the most basic energy by his primal chaos mantra. Yi Chen's body was like a dried-up sponge, crazily devouring these energies. The entire world seemed to be shaking. This lasted for a few breaths of time, and Yi Chen had already returned to his peak state. A light flashed in his hand, and the Rui Jingu Bang appeared in his hand. The small world that he hadn't seen for a long time was once again opened. Yi Chen's powerful divine sense enveloped the surroundings. Everything in the distance was recorded in his mind. Under the effect of Yi Chen's immense consciousness, he quickly analyzed the information gathered from all around. However, there was no news about Qin Hongtu. What made him feel a little amused was that he actually found a few mutant players hiding among the natives of this small world. These mutant players were trying their best to disguise themselves as natives of this small world, and were constantly trying to find out information about Qin Hongtu. However, just like Yi Chen before, they came up empty-handed. Yi Chen smiled sinisterly. Even if he searched for 10,000 years, he might not be able to find anything. It seemed like he could only find the imperial court of the Northern Dynasty or the Southern Dynasty and rely on the imperial court's power to search. At this moment, Yi Chen suddenly felt some movement in a huge city thousands of miles away from Qingyang town. There was actually an underground palace there. The atmosphere in the underground palace was very strange and heavy. A red-robed old man with a gloomy expression spoke. "What's the situation in Qingyang town? How did Huang Yud, the spy we planted in the Northern Dynasty, get killed? Who did it?" Below him stood 4 black-robed men with reserved expressions. After hearing this, one of the black-clothed men stood out and said, "Great Elder, in my opinion, I'm afraid that Huang Yud, that trash, somehow leaked the news and was killed." The red-robed old man immediately slammed the table and said, "Bastard, that Huang Yud was a member of our Heavenly Ghost sect. How much effort did we put in to plant him? We have to investigate and find out who killed him." Heavenly Ghost sect? Yi Chen, who was in his room, suddenly opened his eyes. Who would have thought that Huang Yud was actually a spy planted by the Heavenly Ghost cult in the Northern Dynasty? Through the intelligence he had just gathered, he already knew that there was a notorious evil cult remaining in the Northern and Southern dynasties. It was the Holy Heavenly Ghost cult. It could be said that the Heavenly Ghost cult had committed all kinds of evil in the Northern and Southern dynasties, and everyone wanted to beat them up, but they still couldn't be eradicated. Since the Heavenly Ghost cult was able to survive the joint attack of the Northern and Southern dynasties, their intelligence network must be pretty good, right? The corners of Yi Chen's mouth slowly curled into a smile. Then, his figure slowly disappeared from the spot. Yi Chen's speed was extremely fast. The distance of several tens of thousands of miles was covered in an instant. He arrived in the sky above the underground palace of the Heavenly Ghost cult. Under the cover of Yi Chen's immense spiritual consciousness, their entrance simply could not be hidden. What surprised Yi Chen was that the entrance to the underground palace was actually in the back garden of the city lord's mansion. No wonder it was so difficult to exterminate them. It seemed that the Heavenly Ghost cult had already thoroughly understood the entire Northern and Southern dynasties. Who knew how many people in the imperial court were spies planted by them? Once the imperial court made a move to encircle and annihilate them, they would be the first to know. "Get out here and see me." The red-robed elder of the Heavenly Ghost cult was reprimanding several subordinates. Suddenly, a cold and domineering voice rang out in their minds at the same time. They did not know where the voice came from, but they could not help but have the thought of submitting to it. Everyone looked at each other in shock. Obviously, they knew that this was not an illusion, because the other party had also heard it. The red-robed elder was the first to react. He stood up and looked around vigilantly. Who dares to play tricks in front of this old man? Get out here. Talking to this seat like that, are you tired of living? Immediately after, the red-robed elder felt his body being imprisoned by an invisible force. He could not help but stretch his neck and float up. The invisible force made it impossible for him to breathe. His face was red as he struggled with all his might. When his subordinates saw this, they immediately wanted to rush over to rescue him, but they were blocked by the invisible force. Then, the red-robed elder automatically floated outside. His subordinates looked at each other in shock. They did not dare to escape alone. After all, the heavenly ghost cult had strict rules. If they did not care about the red-robed elder's life and death and escaped alone, what awaited them would be a nightmarish punishment. Just as the red-robed elder felt that he was about to suffocate to death with a bang, he fell to the ground. The long-awaited fresh air was sucked into his lungs again. The red-robed elder coughed violently as he greedily breathed in the air. Suddenly, he realized that he was in the meeting hall of the city lord's mansion. He raised his head and saw a figure with an indistinct face sitting on the city lord's throne. An extremely terrifying aura was emitted from the figure. It made his legs tremble, and he could not stand steadily. This simply stunned the red-robed elder. He was the great elder of the heavenly ghost cult, and his cultivation base was superb. He had long broken through to the peak of the 12th stage. Even in the entire southern and northern dynasties, there were very few people who could contend with him head-on. However, in front of this mysterious person, he could not summon any thoughts of resistance. Being able to lead the heavenly ghost cult to survive until now, the red-robed elder was naturally able to submit and stand tall. He immediately knelt on the ground with a plop and said respectfully, "Senior, may I know why you're looking for me?" Yi Chen said coldly, "Since you're the great elder of the heavenly ghost cult, then you have the final say in the heavenly ghost cult, right?" The red-robed elder rolled his eyes and immediately said, "Senior, may I know what instructions you have? I can still make decisions for ordinary matters." In other words, you can also use your heavenly ghost cult's intelligence system. If that's the case, then help me investigate a person. Hearing Yi Chen's words, the red-robed elder immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He thought that this was an expert invited by the imperial court to destroy them. Turned out that he was just investigating a person. "Senior, don't worry. No matter who you're looking for, I guarantee that I'll find him within half a day. The person I'm looking for is called Qin Hongtu." Chapter 1527. Qin Hongtu. The red-robed old man was obviously shocked when he heard this. Then, he subconsciously shook his head. When Yi Chen saw this, he frowned and asked, "Do you know Qin Hongtu?" The red-robed old man shook his head with a wry smile. "I lost my composure just now. It's just that no one has mentioned this name for hundreds of years. Now, someone dares to call him Qin Hongtu? Don't worry, my lord. I'll definitely find him for you." Yi Chen narrowed his eyes slightly, and an imperceptible glint flashed through his eyes. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry. Tell me first, who is this Qin Hongtu you know?" The red-robed old man looked up at Yi Chen, who was shrouded in clouds. He hesitated for a moment and said, "All right, it's not a secret anyway. I'm sure you know that before the northern and southern dynasties, there was a huge dynasty called the Blood Qin Empire. The Blood Qin Empire was several times bigger than the northern and southern dynasties. The northern and southern dynasties, as well as the 5 great immortal islands, were all split from the Blood Qin Empire. The founding emperor of the Blood Qin Empire was called Qin Hongtu. Later on, the Blood Qin Empire was destroyed by the northern and southern dynasties and the 5 great immortal islands. After that, the former emperor Qin Hongtu went missing. Since then, Qin Hongtu became a taboo in the northern and southern dynasties. Very few people mentioned him. I'm sure the person you're looking for has never heard of the legend of the Blood Qin Empire. Yi Chen subconsciously tapped the armrest of the chair after hearing this. He already knew that the person he was looking for should be the Emperor of the Blood Qin Empire, Qin Hongtu. His mission was to find and kill him. Didn't that mean that Qin Hongtu was still alive? If Qin Hongtu was still alive, then where was he now? Why had he been hiding all these years? And what had he done to deserve the system to issue a mission to kill him? Thinking of this, Yi Chen continued to ask, "Do you know the whereabouts of Qin Hongtu?" The red-robed old man shook his head like a rattledrum. "My lord, you think too highly of our heavenly ghost sect. Right now we're barely hanging on by a thread under the attacks of the northern and southern dynasties. How would we know Qin Hongtu's whereabouts? Are you looking for Qin Hongtu?" Yi Chen stared at him indifferently and said, "So what if I am? Is there anything wrong with that?" The red-robed elder sucked in a breath of cold air, looking rather fearful. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but it's too risky for you to find Qin Hongtu. You should know that when the allied forces of the three parties captured the capital of the Blood Qin Empire, they gathered a total of more than 315 level super experts and attacked Qin Hongtu together. That battle was earth-shattering. The entire Yen city was destroyed. More than 300 level 15 super experts were killed or injured. Only a dozen of them were left. Even so, they couldn't kill Qin Hongtu and he escaped from the outer space. Now, hundreds of years have passed. Who knows if Qin Hongtu's cultivation has recovered and what a terrifying level he has reached." Yi Chen sighed with emotion. He didn't expect Qin Hongtu to be so powerful that he could fight more than 315 level super experts at the same time. If converted to the level of the Untainted Land, he would be at least at the peak of the Daluo Jinxian or even a sage to be. How could there be such an expert in this small world? Wasn't this breaking the balance? Then, after hundreds of years, this guy should have at least broken through to the sage to be. Yi Chen estimated that the peak of the 18-level cultivation in this small world was the peak of the Daluo Jinxian. A smile flashed across the corners of Yi Chen's mouth. He couldn't wait to find Qin Hongtu and have a battle with him to determine the victor. He stared coldly at the red-robed elder and said, "According to you, no one in the world can find Qin Hongtu and your heavenly ghost sect can't do anything, right?" The red-robed elder was about to nod subconsciously, but he soon realized that something was wrong. This terrifying and mysterious expert was temperamental. If the heavenly ghost sect was useless to him, what would he do? The red-robed elder hurriedly shook his head and said with a smile, "Your Excellency, you can't say that our heavenly ghost sect is completely useless. Although we've been banned on the surface, our disciples and grand disciples have spread to every corner of this world and have integrated into all walks of life. If Your Excellency needs it, I'll immediately mobilize all of our disciples and grand disciples to find Qin Hongtu's whereabouts." After the red-robed elder finished speaking, he didn't receive a response for a long time. He felt somewhat uneasy and felt a merciless and cold gaze on him. After a long time, he heard, "Very good. You're very smart and saved your own life. Remember what you said just now. Mobilize your heavenly ghost sect to find Qin Hongtu for me. If I find out that you're being perfunctory, you'll have to bear the consequences." After speaking, Yi Chen disappeared from the throne. Even the red-robed elder didn't notice it. How did Yi Chen disappear just now? After waiting for 15 minutes and making sure that there was no movement, he raised his head. The red-robed elder found that his clothes were soaked in sweat. It was too stressful to talk to this mysterious expert. Fortunately, he reacted quickly. Otherwise, none of them would have been able to survive tonight. Yi Chen left the city lord's mansion. He was in a good mood. He finally knew who Qin Hongtu was. It seemed that he could only get useful information from the management. He hovered above the city lord's mansion and looked around. He decided to return to Qingyang town again. After all, he hadn't bid farewell to Uncle Jiang yet. Anyway, it wouldn't take long for Yi Chen to return to Qingyang town with his speed. Yi Chen traversed the void at lightning speed and flew in the direction of Qingyang town. At this moment, hundreds of people of unknown origins appeared near Uncle Zhang's small courtyard in Qingyang town. They were dressed as the most ordinary cultivators in Qingyang town. Nevertheless, their sharp eyes swept across Uncle Zhang's small courtyard from time to time. These people looked undisciplined, but their every movement carried a sense of decisiveness. It was obvious that they were elite soldiers who had undergone strict training. Moreover, they were all carrying either long or short backpacks. Inside the backpacks, it was unknown what was inside. Chapter 1528. A middle-aged man with a short beard was sitting on another street in Qingyang town, drinking tea. He was the leader of this group of uninvited guests, Zhao Sihai. He was also the commander of this operation. This group of people came from the southern dynasty and sneaked into the country. Their purpose was to capture Yi Chen. It was funny to say that before Yi Chen recovered, he received a scroll of cultivation technique from the young man at the border. It happened to be captured by the camera on the shoulder of a dead soldier. Therefore, the elite Black Tiger Special Brigade of the Southern Dynasty accepted this mission. Sir, according to our tracking, the target lives in this small courtyard, but we don't know where he is now. Zhao Sihai nodded. He instructed the other team members through the headset, all units, pay attention. The target hasn't appeared yet. Remember to hide his identity and don't expose himself. Once the target appears, capture him alive with thunderous means. We must retrieve that scroll of cultivation technique. In addition, we are now fighting across borders. Before the barbarians of the Northern Dynasty react, we must withdraw from the border. Roger. Roger. The team members replied through the headset. Zhao Sihai pinched his brows. This was just a small mission, but he felt a little uneasy. According to the information they received, the target's cultivation was only around the 7th rank. Sending the elite Flying Tiger Special Brigade to deal with a cultivator of his level was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. With the level of weaponry of the Southern Dynasty, the weapons carried by ordinary soldiers could cause fatal damage to martial artists below the 9th rank. At this time, Yi Chen had already crossed the void and arrived in the sky above Qingyang town. At a glance, he saw the suspicious people lying in ambush near Uncle Zhang's house. Although these people disguised themselves well, it was impossible for them to hide from Yi Chen's eyes. Under the gaze of Yi Chen's fiery golden eyes, he saw that these people were carrying some modern weapons in their backpacks. They were similar to the guns he encountered at the border, or even better. Yi Chen was not interested in these people, but he was a little interested in the weapons in their hands. The technological level of this world was much more advanced than the original Earth, and the individual weapons in their hands were even more lethal. Yi Chen had tried it when he was at the border. That kind of ordinary gun could easily shatter a huge rock 3 kilometers away. On Earth, only heavy sniper rifles could have such an effect. Why would someone from the Southern Dynasty appear here for no reason? It was obvious that they were here for him. However, Yi Chen didn't know why they came looking for him. But all of this wasn't important. Moreover, he still wanted to get information about Qin Hongtu from the Southern Court. So, they took the initiative to come looking for him. Yi Chen glanced at Uncle Zhang's small courtyard. If a fight broke out, with the power of those firearms, this small courtyard would be reduced to ashes in the blink of an eye. This was not a problem for Yi Chen. He casually set up a defensive array that enveloped Uncle Zhang's small courtyard. Then, with a flash, he appeared in front of the small courtyard. Yi Chen stared at the disguised members of the Flying Tiger Special Brigade with his hands behind his back, revealing a half-smile. When these members in charge of keeping watch saw Yi Chen appear, they were immediately stunned. They didn't see where Yi Chen came from at all. Therefore, they immediately reported to Zhao Sihai, Captain, the target has appeared. He has discovered us. I repeat, he has discovered us. Please give instructions. Zhao Sihai's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light, and he gave the order, "Take action immediately. If the target resists, immediately open fire and break his limbs." Roger. In an instant, more than a dozen members of the Flying Tiger Special Brigade rushed towards Yi Chen. At the same time, a black gun appeared in their hands, and the muzzle was aimed at Yi Chen. "Don't move or we'll shoot." Yi Chen smiled slightly and suddenly walked towards them. "Then what are you waiting for? Just shoot." As expected of the most elite members of the Flying Tiger Special Brigade. When they saw that Yi Chen didn't listen to their orders and stood still, but instead approached them, they immediately opened fire without hesitation. Bang! The muzzle of the gun emitted a dazzling light, and with a dull gunshot, dozens of golden bullets shot towards Yi Chen. These bullets were so fast that even the void trembled slightly. Yi Chen sighed with emotion. Sometimes, firearms could be extremely powerful when developed to the extreme. Firearms and bullets of this level could threaten cultivators who had just broken through to the immortal realm in the Eldritch world. Unfortunately, this group of people encountered Yi Chen. Moreover, it was Yi Chen who had recovered his cultivation. Dozens of bullets rapidly approached Yi Chen. When they were 2 meters away from Yi Chen, it was as if they had fallen into a sticky swamp. It would be extremely difficult to advance even a single point. At a glance, he saw dozens of bullets floating motionlessly beside Yi Chen. Yi Chen reached out and grabbed a bullet in his hand. This bullet was made of a steel alloy that Yi Chen had never seen before. It was extremely hard, and its hardness was comparable to that of a magic weapon. This also made Yi Chen a little interested. If he had time to get the formula of this steel alloy in his hands and let the forging masters in the small world study it, he might be able to improve the strength of their weapons. After seeing this scene, Zhao Sihai, who rushed over from another street at lightning speed, suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip. He was already cursing in his heart. Who the hell said that the target was only at the 7th stage? To be able to do this, he had to be at least at the peak of the 12th stage. Zhao Sihai immediately roared in the channel, "The target is extremely dangerous. Everyone, fire with all your strength. Strategic individual weapons are allowed." 2-2-2 In an instant, hundreds of spears fired at Yi Chen together. The bullets spewed out from the muzzles were like a metal storm, shrouding Yi Chen. In the face of all the attacks, Yi Chen did not even look at them. Instead, he locked his eyes on Zhao Sihai. He had heard the conversation just now. It seemed that this guy was the commander this time. Then, except for him, everyone else could die. Boom! At this moment, individual destructive weapons locked onto Yi Chen and brazenly fired. The power of individual destructive weapons was more than thousands of times greater than that of ordinary bullet. In an instant, they broke through Yi Chen's defense around him and appeared less than half a meter away from him in the blink of an eye. Chapter 1529. Zhao Sihai clenched his fists nervously. All his hopes were pinned on this shoulder-carried destructive weapon. Even if the other party was a 12th-level super expert, he would absolutely not be able to block the bombardment of the latest destructive weapon. But in the next moment, Zhao Sihai's eyes almost popped out. He stared at the scene in front of him. The destructive weapon he had high hopes for was actually in the hands of the target. There was no explosion. Zhao Sihai blurted out a curse. F***ck his immortal. These bastards from the equipment department actually gave me a dud. Are they trying to kill me? Yi Chen suddenly raised his head and showed a creepy smile to Zhao Sihai. Dud? No, you're wrong. Immediately after, the single destructive weapon that Zhao Sihai thought was a dud suddenly appeared in the middle of the Flying Tiger Special Forces. Boom! With a loud noise, a terrifying explosion spread in all directions. Countless fragments tore the soldiers apart. Corpses were everywhere. There were broken limbs everywhere. There was no complete corpse. Zhao Sihai's mind was blank. Less than 5 centimeters away from his forehead, There was a sharp fragment the size of a palm. It seemed to be blocked by an invisible force. Otherwise, this shrapnel would be enough to flip his skull. I can save you, and I can also kill you. Yi Chen's cold words sounded in Zhao Sihai's ears. Then like a cloud, Zhao Sihai soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. At this time, the local snakes of Qingyang town, who were alarmed by the loud noise, came over. When they saw the bloody scene, their legs and stomachs went soft. There were broken limbs everywhere. The walls on both sides of the street had collapsed. Only the small courtyard in the distance was unscathed. Suddenly, someone found a bent gun on the ground. His pupils shrank. This is the new firearm of the Southern Dynasty. Are these people soldiers of the Southern Dynasty? How did they appear here? This is bad. The original mayor is dead. The new mayor hasn't arrived yet. Let's quickly report it. When Zhao Sihai opened his eyes, he found himself on top of a mountain 200 miles away from Qingyang town. Zhao Sihai was really shocked. Even the most advanced aircraft of the Southern Dynasty couldn't do it in the blink of an eye. Yi Chen was standing on the mountain peak with his back to him, looking at the distant starry sky. Now Zhao Sihai had lost any courage to resist. He took a deep breath and asked bitterly, "What is your cultivation level?" Only then did Yi Chen turn around. "That's not something for you to worry about. You just need to answer me. Why is the Southern Court hunting me down?" Zhao Sihai was straightforward and directly told the cause of the matter. Yi Chen suddenly realized that he had not noticed that the dead soldier had a camera on his shoulder. "So you're saying that you're looking for me to take back this cultivation method?" Yi Chen casually tossed the booklet in front of Zhao Sihai. Originally, he had planned to use it for a while, but now that he had recovered his cultivation, this level of cultivation method was worthless in his eyes. Zhao Sihai did not know how many times he had been shocked today. The booklet in front of him was indeed the one stolen by the group of people who sneaked into Xingjing. But the man in front of him threw it to him like a pair of worn-out clogs. Zhao Sihai wanted to cry in his heart. If he had known it was so simple, would his brothers have needed to die? "Let me ask you, have you heard of Qin Hongtu's name?" Zhao Sihai raised his head blankly. "Qin Hongtu? Who is that?" Yi Chen sighed in his heart. It seemed that Zhao Sihai's level was too low to come into contact with those secrets. Get back to the people in power of the Southern Dynasty. I'll find them soon. After that, Yi Chen disappeared. After Yi Chen left, Zhao Sihai sat on the ground with relief. The pressure in front of this man was so great that his heart seemed to explode at any time. By the way, did he just say that he was going to Xingjing? Zhao Sihai rolled and crawled as he rushed into the distance. "No, I have to bring this news back even if I die. Once this terrifying man comes to Xingjing, the world will be turned upside down." Yi Chen returned to the small town and said goodbye to Uncle Jiang and his daughter. He gave Uncle Jiang a golden pill, and Uncle Jiang's cultivation directly jumped to the peak of the 7th level, which almost scared him crazy. A day later, Yi Chen sat in the main hall of the Heavenly Ghost Sect's headquarters. The 8 elders of the Heavenly Ghost Sect stood on both sides, trembling with fear. The red-robed elder said with a little excitement, "My lord, we've mobilized all our internal resources, exposed a few spies who have been lurking for decades, and flipped through some secret files that have been sealed for many years. We've finally found a clue." "Speak." The red-robed elder originally wanted to negotiate with Yi Chen, but when he saw Yi Chen's emotionless face and the terrifying aura he faintly emitted, he didn't dare to say anything. "My lord, according to those secret files, Qin Hongtu's whereabouts were recorded on a jade cauldron. Later, that jade cauldron was divided into 9 fragments. The 3 ruling clans of the Northern Dynasty each had 1, the 5 great immortal mountains in the sea shared 3, and the remaining 3 fell into the hands of the Southern Dynasty. In other words, as long as we gather all 9 fragments of the Jade Cauldron, we can find Qin Hongtu's whereabouts." "Exactly." The red-robed elder wiped the sweat from his forehead. Talking to this man was too stressful. Yi Chen's mouth finally revealed a smile. When I gather all 9 fragments, I won't treat you badly. Everyone immediately became excited. They had taken such a big risk and paid such a big price. Wasn't it all for these words? The 8 elders of the Heavenly Ghost sect had already secretly studied this matter. They realized that even if a few of them at the peak of the 12th stage joined forces, they probably wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow from the other party. Furthermore, the other party still wanted to find Qin Hongtu despite knowing his cultivation. Clearly, this man was a ferocious dragon crossing the river. If they could hug his thigh tightly, perhaps the Heavenly Ghost sect would be able to openly walk under the sun from underground. The supreme Tianjing was the Northern Dynasty's Yan city. The Northern Dynasty's Tuoba clan, Ziyun clan, and Hanjiang clan took turns to govern. The court was filled with the descendants of the 3 clans. Even the other clans were vassals of these 3 clans. The reason why the 3 clans were able to survive for 100 years was because it was said that their 15th stage ancestor was still alive. This was because of the reputation of their ancestor, and the power of the 3 clans was like the sun in the sky. On this day, the sky above the supreme Tianjing was shrouded by dark clouds. At this moment, an uninvited guest appeared outside the gates of the Tuoba family in Tianjing City. Yi Chen looked at the towering gates that were 8 stories tall and made entirely of purple gold. A trace of mockery appeared at the corners of his mouth. Chapter 1530. When a clan lost its humility, it was not far from being destroyed. The Tuoba clan's purple gold gate was 2 stories taller than the Qianyuan gate in the palace. The materials used were more luxurious, and the design was more domineering. The Tuoba clan was obviously out of control, but no one in the imperial court felt that this was abnormal. Even the Ziyun clan and the Hanjiang clan were more domineering than the palace. The imperial family was just a symbolic decoration in the Northern Dynasty. Yi Chen had just stood in front of the Tuoba clan's gate when 2 tall guards in golden armor walked over. They scolded him rudely. "What are you doing? Get lost. This is the Tuoba clan." Yi Chen immediately laughed. "People say that the King of Hell is easy to deal with. How dare these 2 guards be so arrogant? It's obvious what the Tuoba clan is like. Kid, I think you don't want to live anymore. How dare you behave so atrociously in front of the Tuoba clan? I'll skin you alive." The 2 golden-armored guards flew into a rage out of humiliation. They attacked Yi Chen from both sides. They were extremely fast, and the golden spears in their hands brought about a biting cold wind. Yi Chen shook his head. The Tuoba clan was indeed one of the 3 great clans in the Northern Dynasty. Even the guards at the gate were at the peak of rank 7. It's okay to commit a sin, but it's not okay to commit one's own sin. Yi Chen did not even bat an eyelid. He waved his hand, and the 2 guards in golden armor immediately flew into the air. Like 2 meteors, they heavily smashed into the purple gold gate behind them. Pop, pop. With 2 crisp sounds, the 2 guards in golden armor were smashed into 2 clouds of blood mist. Their golden helmets and armors were also blown to smithereens. Yi Chen flung his sleeves and spoke calmly. His voice was like a clap of thunder that resounded in the sky above the Tuoba clan. "Who is the head of the Tuoba clan? Come out and see me! Come out and see me! Come out and see me!" Yi Chen's voice reverberated in the sky above the Tuoba family. Countless Tuoba family members covered their ears in pain and rolled on the ground, howling in pain. For those with weaker cultivations, 2 streams of blood flowed out of their ears. Countless forces in Swallow City were alerted to the commotion. When they found out that it was the Tuoba family, they were all stunned. His first reaction was that this brat was tired of living. He actually dared to provoke the Tuoba family. He really didn't know how to spell the word death. In the blink of an eye, the crowd of onlookers swarmed over. When they saw a lone figure standing at the entrance of the Tuoba family, they believed their guesses even more. Someone asked doubtfully, was the sound just now made by this kid? What a big commotion! There were also people who shook their heads and sighed, it seems like it's him. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. Just because he has a little bit of cultivation, he doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Does he think he can become famous just because he provoked the Tuoba family? You have to be alive first. Someone else sneered, stop bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind. Aren't we all here to watch the commotion? Look at the entrance of the Tuoba family. There's blood on the entrance. I guess this kid just killed someone. He dares to kill the Tuoba family members? Then this kid is dead. Even the heavens can't save him. You should know that a dog of the Tuoba family is worth more than the lives of those nobles and ministers. The Tuoba family was in a complete mess. The Tuoba family members couldn't remember how many years it had been since someone dared to provoke the Tuoba family. They were all slacking off. They didn't know how to deal with such a situation. The entire family was in a mess. All the servants who were below rank 7 fell to the ground, bleeding from their ears. It was a miserable sight. Even the new guards whose cultivations were above level 8 weren't any better. It was as if they heard thunder exploding in their ears, making them dizzy. The head of the Tuoba family, Tuoba Laming, was sitting in the main hall. He was so angry that his face turned green. There was actually someone outside asking him to get lost. If this were to fall into the ears of the other 2 clans, wouldn't this become the biggest joke of the Tuoba clan? Where are the black armored guards? Come with me to see who dares to cause trouble again. The dignity of the Tuoba family cannot be offended, Tuoba Laming ordered. He immediately gathered the most elite black armored guards of the Tuoba family. There were a total of 3,000 black armored guards. The minimum requirement to enter was rank 9. Moreover, these 3,000 black armored guards were equipped with the best armor and weapons in the entire Northern Dynasty. Every single one of them had been through hundreds of battles, and their combat experience was incomparably rich. These were all vicious and merciless murderers. They were also the sharpest butcher's knife in the Tuoba family's hands. They had helped them kill countless enemies of the Tuoba family. As soon as Tuoba Laming gave the order, 500 black armored guards gathered around him. For this matter, all of the black iron guards of the Tuoba family had been sent out to carry out missions. When the 500 black armored guards gathered, a terrifying murderous aura exploded. It was as if the black armored guards carried with them the stench of blood that made one's heart palpitate. Of course, the words of these people could not escape Yi Chen's ears. However, he didn't care. The bigger the commotion, the better. After all, he had said that he was here for the promised fragment. As long as he got the 3 fragments from the 3 families, he would leave immediately. At this moment, a group of valiant figures descended from the sky and landed in front of the purple gold gate not far from Yi Chen. One of them was a middle-aged man who was wearing a purple robe. He had a natural air of superiority about him, and he was the head of the Tuoba family, Tuoba Laming. Tuoba Laming sized up Yi Chen and asked coldly, "Are you the one who dares to offend the dignity of the Tuoba family? But the consequences of doing so, tell me honestly, who sent you here?" When they heard Tuoba Laming's question, the surrounding people seemed to understand something and started whispering to each other. Could it be that this fellow had rushed over to die because he couldn't receive the knowledge of others? While Tuoba Laming was sizing up Yi Chen was sizing him up as well. Yi Chen could tell at a glance that this middle-aged man, who was at the peak of rank 13, was the head of the Tuoba family. Yi Chen went straight to the point. "My time is precious. Stop wasting time. Let me ask you something. Do you have the fragment of the jade tripod? Hand it over to me and I will leave immediately." When Tuoba Laming heard the words, "fragment of the jade tripod," his eyes narrowed and he immediately ordered, "Capture him quickly. I want him alive." Chapter 1531. Tuoba Laming had ordered the black-armored guards to attack because he had heard the words Jade Tripod Fragment. Back then, the three great clans had killed countless people and burned countless precious books to prevent news of the Jade Tripod Fragment from spreading. Now, other than the current head of the clan and a few elders, ordinary disciples of the three great clans did not know what the Jade Tripod Fragment was. It was one of the greatest secrets of the three great clans. Yet, this fellow had asked for the Jade Tripod Fragment the moment he arrived. Tuoba Laming's first reaction was that the news had been leaked. He had to capture this person alive and interrogate him. He had to interrogate the source of the news and prevent it from spreading. If the news had already spread, then he would rather kill 10,000 innocent people to prevent news of the Jade Tripod Fragment from spreading. Facing the frenzied charging black-armored guards, Yi Chen simply stood there, unmoving. To others, he gave off the impression that he had been scared silly. The people around him did not understand and whispered among themselves, "This kid has the guts to cause trouble here. Is this all he's capable of? Now he's scared out of his wit." What do you know? These are the black-armored guards of the Tuoba family. If an ordinary person could still stand under their bloody attacks, they would be considered courageous. If it was an ordinary person, they would have pissed their pants in fear. At this moment, Yi Chen, who seemed to have been scared out of his wits, suddenly felt something brewing in his body. It was as if there was a terrifying power hidden in his ordinary body. Occasionally, he would emit a wisp of energy that made people's hearts palpitate. As the head of the Tuoba clan, Tuoba Laming immediately felt that something was amiss. However, the arrow was already knocked on the bow and had to be released. He placed all his hopes on the 300 black-armored guards. For hundreds of years, the black-armored guards had never disappointed him. He hoped that they would be able to complete the mission again. The black-armored guards were less than 10 feet away from Yi Chen. Yi Chen could even smell the thick scent of blood coming from the black-armored guards. But Yi Chen laughed. He laughed very happily. He looked past the crowd and stared at Tuoba Laming. "I spent so much effort to find this place. I wasn't sure at first, but after seeing your reaction, I know I've come to the right place. If you don't give me the Jade Tripod Fragment today, don't blame me for being ruthless. How dare you? Surrender without a fight." At this time, a black-armored guard commander had already rushed forward. The sharp long saber in his hand drew a silver light and went straight for Yi Chen's legs. Since the patriarch said that he wanted to capture him alive, then it would be fine to just cripple his legs. Right at this moment, Yi Chen suddenly shouted, "All unrelated people, scram!" There was a loud clap of thunder. A terrifying shockwave swept out in all directions. Yi Chen's roar caused the air to explode. His voice was even more terrifying than the thunder from the ninth heaven. The 300 black-armored guards, who had already charged forward, were lifted off the ground with terrified expressions. Their bodies flew out uncontrollably for several hundred meters before crashing heavily onto the ground. These black-armored guards were bleeding from their 7 orifices and twitching non-stop. Their internal organs had been severely damaged. Even if they were not dead, they would be half dead. Tuoba Laming's pupils had shrunk to the size of a needle. He had a horrified expression on his face. He did not expect that the Tuoba family's invincible black-armored guards would be severely injured with just a roar. Yi Chen's soundwave attack did not have a specific range. In other words, it was an attack that did not discriminate between people. The crowd who were watching from afar also suffered. One by one, they screamed and fell from the sky. Some fell to the ground with bruises all over their faces. At this moment, everyone looked at Yi Chen in a different light. Where did this nameless expert come from? They looked at the Tuoba family with a complicated expression. The Tuoba family was going to be in big trouble today. Tuoba Laming's expression changed quickly. He wanted to retreat silently. He knew that this person was not someone he could deal with. He could only ask for help from his ancestor. However, in the next moment, Tuoba Laming felt his neck being grabbed by an invisible hand. Yi Chen, who was standing far away, used the dragon catcher hand to grab Tuoba Laming and bring him closer. Tuoba Laming felt a huge force pressing down on his shoulder. It was as if the entire Yen city was on his back. Tuoba Laming's face turned red. His legs trembled violently, but he gritted his teeth and held on. He could not kneel in front of this stranger. Otherwise, the Tuoba family would lose face. Yi Chen sneered at him and said mockingly, "I didn't expect you to have some pride. Let me see how long your pride can last." After saying that, Yi Chen increased the strength of his hand. Tuoba Laming could not hold on any longer. He fell to his knees with a thud. Both of his knees had been shattered by a powerful force. Sweat dripped from Tuoba Laming's forehead. He gritted his teeth and said, "Who are you? Why are you making things difficult for the Tuoba family?" Yi Chen's eyes were cold, as if he was a high and mighty god. He said expressionlessly, "Don't think too highly of yourself. I have never intended to make things difficult for you. As long as you give me the Jade Cauldron fragment, I will leave. If you insist on doing things your own way, then there is no need for the Tuoba family to exist. Who dares to say that he wants to destroy the Tuoba family? Bastard! Let go of him!" At that moment, a majestic voice came from afar. Then, a powerful aura descended from the sky. A huge hand flashing with black light slapped down on Yi Chen. When this person appeared, the surrounding light dimmed. The Tuoba family members could not help but cheer. "It's the ancestor! The ancestor has finally come out of seclusion. That's great. With the ancestor here, let's see how arrogant he can be." Yi Chen had already sensed this person the moment he appeared. An imperceptible sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he immediately sent a backhand slap at him. After Yi Chen's golden palm and the old man's black palm collided, a loud sound was heard. A terrifying force spread out in all directions. The Tuoba family's luxurious buildings collapsed. Broken fences and broken walls covered the sky. The old and young of the Tuoba family cried and screamed as if the end of the world had come. Chapter 1532. The old man in the sky slowly revealed himself. He was a bald old man with a round body and a potbelly. He had 2 long eyebrows on his chubby face and looked kind. However, his eyes were now emitting 2 cold rays of light. The old man looked at Yi Chen and cupped his fists solemnly. "Fellow cultivator, I am the supreme elder of the Tuoba clan, Tuoba Changfeng. May I ask who you are?" Yi Chen didn't have time to be polite. "Who I am is not important. Are you the strongest person in the Tuoba clan? Is there anyone behind you who can make decisions? Call them out. Don't waste my time." Tuoba Changfeng's face was filled with anger. He couldn't remember how long it had been since someone dared to talk to him like that. Although he felt that Lin Fan wasn't any weaker than him, he didn't dare to offend him. However, the other party was looking down on him too much. Tuoba Changfeng said coldly, "There's no need for that. In the Tuoba clan, I have the final say. That would be for the best." Yi Chen stepped on Tuoba Laming and said, "I want the Jade Cauldron fragment. Give it to me and I'll let you go." Tuoba Changfeng's eyes glowed cunningly. He shook his head and said, "Fellow cultivator, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Our Tuoba clan doesn't have the Jade Cauldron fragment. Don't let others take advantage of you." Yi Chen's eyes flashed coldly. He lowered his head and looked at Tuoba Laming pitifully. "It seems like your Tuoba clan isn't worth much. Your supreme elder doesn't intend to let you go back alive." Tuoba Laming panicked. He could see clearly what kind of person Lin Fan was. He was a vicious and merciless person who kept his word. It would be troublesome if he angered Lin Fan. Tuoba Laming opened his mouth to beg for mercy, but Yi Chen didn't want to give him any more chances. He stomped his foot and Tuoba Laming screamed. Yi Chen broke Tuoba Laming's meridians and killed him. "Old man, since you can't remember, let me help you recall. After Yi Chen finished speaking, the Rui Jingu Bang appeared in his hand. Yi Chen soared into the sky. The Rui Jingu Bang smashed viciously towards Taba Changfeng with the weight of Mount Tai with great force. Tuoba Changfeng didn't think that the other party would actually make a move on him. Without any warning, he killed Tuoba Laming in an incomparably clean manner. Once again, it launched a thunderous attack on him. When he lifted his head and saw the Rui Jingu Bang rapidly approaching him, Tuoba Changfeng's face changed. The threat that Yi Chen posed to him was too great. The moment Yi Chen made his move, his strength and speed skyrocketed to the extreme. This swift and tyrannical attack had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Tuoba Changfeng didn't dare to take Yi Chen's attack head-on, but the entire Tuoba family was behind him. If he dodged, Yi Chen's attack would definitely destroy the entire Tuoba family. Tuoba Changfeng had no choice but to take the attack head-on. He gritted his teeth and a blood-red saber appeared in his hand. He wasn't lucky enough to raise the saber above his head and meet Yi Chen head-on. A deafening sound rang out. A terrifying energy surged out in all directions. The ground of the Tuoba family crumbled as though it had been struck by lightning. Bottomless fissures appeared on the ground. There were dilapidated walls everywhere. The buildings had collapsed one after another. The onlookers had already run dozens of li away. When they saw such a powerful strike, they were immediately stunned. The entire Tuoba family was now covered in violent smoke and dust. The onlookers who didn't know the result of the battle were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Finally, a gust of strong wind blew away the smoke and dust, allowing the onlookers to see the situation clearly. When they saw the result of the scene, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They felt a chill run down their spines, straight to their heads. Many young people might not have heard of Tuoba Changfeng's name. However, everyone in the older generation of Yen City knew who he was. Tuoba Changfeng was the only remaining expert at the peak of level 15 in the entire Tuoba family. Tuoba Changfeng's status in the Tuoba family was like a stabilizing needle. As long as Tuoba Changfeng was around, the Tuoba family would never fall. There was a legend in the Northern Dynasty. Tuoba Changfeng of the Tuoba family, Ziyun Yan Yu of the Ziyun family, and Hanjiang Yuani of the Hanjiang family. They were the three uncrowned kings of the Northern Dynasty. However, Tuoba Changfeng, a top-notch expert, was now on his knees. In front of this unfamiliar young man, Tuoba Changfeng was forced to his knees with a single strike of his staff. The blood-red saber in Tuoba Changfeng's hand, which had accompanied him for many years, had been shattered into countless pieces. His arms looked intact on the outside, but in reality, they were shattered inch by inch. That wasn't all. Even Tuoba Changfeng's spine was covered in cracks, as if it was a broken piece of porcelain that had been crudely made and stuck together. Tuoba Changfeng's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He finally felt the despair that Tuoba Laming had felt. They weren't on the same level. Tuoba Changfeng even felt as if he had returned to the past, when countless fifth-grade cultivators had joined forces to besiege Qin Hongtu in that brutal battle. At that time, Qin Hongtu gave off the impression that he was an undefeatable demon lord. The young man in front of him seemed even more terrifying than Qin Hongtu. Yi Chen's attack didn't seem to affect him at all. He was still as calm as ever. He tapped the Rui Jingu Bang on Tuoba Changfeng's head and asked coldly, "Do you remember now? Do you still need me to help you recall?" Tuoba Changfeng shuddered. He quickly shook his head like a rattledrum and said, "I remember now. I'm old and muddle-headed. Our Tuoba family does have a jade tripod fragment. I'll give it to you now." Tuoba Changfeng lowered his head and looked at his arm, which he could no longer lift. He was quite strong-willed. He used his cultivation technique and broke one of his fingers. Then, with great difficulty, he controlled the severed finger and sent it flying towards Yi Chen. Yi Chen saw clearly that the broken finger was wearing a gray universe ring. Yi Chen looked at Tuoba Changfeng's bleeding finger and shook his head. Then, he easily found the jade cauldron fragment in the universe ring that gave off a profound aura. He looked at it carefully. As expected, the pattern on the jade tripod fragment was a corner of a map. It seemed like he would be able to find Qin Hongtu's whereabouts once he gathered all 9 fragments. Chapter 1533. Yi Chen put away the jade tripod fragment and turned to look at the Tuoba family, which was in ruins, as well as the family members who were looking at him in horror. Yi Chen shook his head and soared into the sky. He did not care about the severely injured Tuoba Changfeng. In his opinion, since he had obtained the jade tripod fragment, there was no need to silence them. After all, he would leave this world after killing Qin Hongtu. There was no need to kill too many useless people. Yi Chen arrived in the sky above Yen City in the blink of an eye. He looked down at the huge Yen City from a high vantage point. He could vaguely see that there were 3 big families surrounding and guarding Yen City. They were located in 3 different directions. If he were to look for them one by one, it would be a waste of time. Therefore, Yi Chen exhaled and said calmly, "Supreme Elders of the Ziyun family and the Hanjiang family, I'll give you 2 incense sticks worth of time to come and see me. Those who don't come on time will have to bear the consequences." Although Yi Chen's voice was not loud this time, it reached the ears of everyone in Yen City in an instant. It was as if someone was speaking clearly in their ears. No matter what they were doing or whether they were cultivating in the underground palace, as long as they were within the range of Yen City, everyone could hear it. The matter in the Tuoba family had not spread to the other 2 big families. After hearing Yi Chen's voice, everyone's first reaction was that someone was playing a prank on them or that they were tired of living. In the Tuoba family, several figures came over in a panic and helped Tuoba Changfeng up. With great difficulty, Taba Changfeng took out an extremely ancient-looking porcelain bottle and poured out a shining golden pill from it. A trace of reluctance flashed in his eyes. He had found this elixir in an ancient relic after going through untold hardship. He had kept it as a life-saving elixir. It seemed that he had to use it in advance today. Tuoba Changfeng did not hesitate and swallowed the golden elixir. Then, a huge amount of energy exploded in his body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. He could feel the violent energy rampaging through his body, reconnecting his broken bones one by one. Although the whole process was extremely painful, the medicinal effect was really miraculous. In just 2 breaths of time, his injuries were almost healed. Coupled with his own cultivation method, Taba Changfeng gradually regained his former majesty. When he heard Yi Chen's announcement in the sky, a trace of gloominess flashed across his eyes. Who would have thought that the jade tripod fragment would still be lost in his hands? At the thought of this, Taba Changfeng took out a small sound transmission jade talisman from his bosom. This kind of voice transmission jade talisman was incomparably precious, and the distance it could transmit was also extremely limited. However, it was enough for Taba Changfeng to contact the other 2 experts, Han Jiang Yuani and the purple cloud fish. "Brother Han Jiang, Brother Ziyun, did you both hear the sound in the sky just now?" Tuoba Changfeng had just finished speaking when the voice of the purple cloud fish came from the jade talisman. "Tuoba Changfeng, did you contact us just for this small matter? He's just an ignorant junior who brought about his own destruction. I've already sent the juniors to deal with him." Han Jiang Yuani also said helplessly, "That's right. These years, there have always been some ignorant brats who want to make a name for themselves by stepping on our names. They really don't know what they're talking about." Taba Changfeng shook his head and sneered. "It's the ignorant brat that you're talking about. He almost killed me just now. If it weren't for my precious gold core, you wouldn't be able to see me now." "Brother Taba, is this true?" Han Jiang Yuani and the purple cloud fish were stunned at the same time. They knew that Taba Changfeng wouldn't joke with them like this. "Don't talk nonsense. The other party came for the jade tripod fragment, and he didn't come with good intentions. Call back your little brats first. Don't go and die in vain. From the exchange just now, I knew that this guy was unfathomable. None of us are his match. We can only join forces. The purple cloud fish's eyes suddenly burst with a burning fighting spirit. After hearing what you said, my blood is boiling. I've been too lonely these years. I've almost never met a decent opponent. Han Jiang Yuani also said, if that's the case, the three of us will meet up in the sky. I've already called back the juniors of my family. At the same time, after hearing Yi Chen's voice, countless people in Swallow City were startled. There were even some mutant players who were hiding in Swallow City. These mutant players had fallen near Swallow City. They were lucky enough to survive and were hiding in Swallow City. They wanted to provoke and find out about Qin Hongtu. Unfortunately, ordinary people had never heard of Qin Hongtu's name. At this time, countless people who were oppressed by the three great families had a burst of light in their eyes. Some people had already learned about what had happened to the Taba family in advance. Some people rubbed their hands and said excitedly, finally, someone is going to stand up against the three great families. I'm really looking forward to it. Don't get your hopes up. The three great families are deeply rooted, and the three great elders are unfathomable. I think this kid is going to die. What do you know? A ferocious dragon will not cross the river. Just now, this person single-handedly challenged the entire Taba family. Taba Changfeng was defeated by him in one move. Is this really true? Then we should all go and join in on the fun. Therefore, countless cultivators rushed toward the area where Yi Chen was at lightning speed. They did not dare to get too close. They all hid far behind some buildings and on some treetop. They stared at Yi Chen, who was standing in the void with his hands behind his back and his clothes fluttering in the wind. Everyone's pupils constricted at the same time. To be able to stand in the void so confidently, he had to be at least level 15. Legend had it that the great elders of the three great families were also at level 15. At this time, three old figures broke through the void at the same time and appeared near Yi Chen, surrounding him in the middle. Among them, Taba Changfeng said coldly, "Fellow cultivator, we have no quarrel with you. Why do you have to force us? If you agree to return the jade tripod fragment to me, we can let you go easily." Yi Chen did not pay attention to him. Instead, he looked at Taba Changfeng with great interest and said, "I didn't expect you to recover from your injuries so quickly. It seems that I didn't go easy on you just now. I won't show you any mercy from now on." Then, he ignored Taba Changfeng, who looked terrible. He turned to look at Han Jiang Yuani and the purple cloud fish and said, "It seems that the two of you won't obediently hand over the jade tripod fragment to me, right?" Chapter 1534. Facing Yi Chen's question, Purple Cloud Fish and Han Jiang Yuani both wore a cold and arrogant expression, as if they disdained to answer this question. As for Tuoba Changfeng, his expression was grave. As for Yi Chen's power, he had personally experienced it. Unless it was necessary, he really didn't want to fight with Yi Chen again. "Your Excellency," Tuoba Changfeng opened his mouth and was about to say something, but he was interrupted by Yi Chen's words. "Then why are you still talking nonsense? Let's fight." In an instant the energy within Yi Chen's body suddenly erupted, as if there were 100 large volcanoes buried within his body. When Yi Chen unscrupulously released his energy, a heart-palpitating aura spread out in all directions. It seemed to have reached the limit of what this small world could withstand. The void around Yi Chen also faintly distorted and vibrated. Purple Cloudfish and Han Jiang Yuani were shocked. At this point, they finally believed that Tuoba Changfeng's words were not exaggerated. "Old friends, let's go together." With just a glance, Purple Cloudfish, Han Jiang Yuani and Tuoba Changfeng attacked together. Taba Changfeng roared, and countless green winds surged out around him. These green winds gathered and roared. In the blink of an eye, they turned into 3 green flood dragons, each as thick as a water bucket and hundreds of meters long. These 3 green flood dragons looked ferocious. They shook their heads and wagged their tails as they charged at Yi Chen. Purple Cloudfish raised his hands high above his head and muttered something. In an instant, dark clouds appeared in the sky, covering an area of 100 miles. The dark clouds pressed down on the city. There were also countless purple thunderbolts brewing, as if the target of these thunderbolts had already locked onto Yi Chen. As for Han Jiang, he roared and transformed into a giant man that was over 100 feet in size. The giant wore heavy armor and held a huge mace that was over 100 feet long. He let out a thunderous roar and crossed a distance of 100 feet in one step. The mace carried an intense aura that could shatter the void as it smashed towards Yi Chen. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of purple lightning bolts as thick as buckets, 3 green flood dragons, and the giant mace attacked at the same time. The onlookers who had retreated 100 miles away were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped when they saw what was happening in the distant sky. Good heavens! The attacks of our northern dynasty's 3 heavenly kings are so fierce. As expected of the 3 great clans. Isn't that so? As long as the 3 grand elders are here, the foundation of the 3 great clans will never be shaken. Sigh, everyone, haven't you realized that the pinnacle of martial arts is actually like this? Summoning the wind and summoning the rain, this is the legendary divine ability of the gods. Tisk tsk, I reckon that this young man has kicked an iron plate. He'll be blasted into smithereens in a while. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. No one was optimistic about Yi Chen. After all, no one could imagine what kind of person could survive such an otherworldly power. Yi Chen's sleeves fluttered in the wind, but he didn't move at all. The corner of his mouth held a cold smile from beginning to end. In his opinion, these 3 people were indeed not bad. They were all at the peak of the 15th stage, and were only half a step away from the 16th stage. With such an ability to summon the wind and summon the rain, if they were in the Eldritch world, they would at most be considered a decent heaven immortal. To Yi Chen, who had already recovered to his peak, it was as childish and laughable as showing off one's slight skill in front of an expert. Especially the attacks of the 3 people. In Yi Chen's eyes, they were so slow that it was as if they were in slow motion. Boom! Seeing that the purple lightning was about to strike, Yi Chen suddenly raised his head and opened his mouth to suck in. Instantly, it was as if he was drawing water from a river. Hundreds of lightning bolts were actually swallowed by him in one gulp. At the same time, the 100-mile dark clouds were all sucked into Yi Chen's stomach. Then, before anyone could react, Yi Chen suddenly opened his mouth. Crack! 3 purplish-black lightning bolts as thick as water tanks struck out instantly. They happened to hit the heads of the 3 green flood dragons. Like crushing dry weeds, the 3 green flood dragons all disappeared in an instant. The 3 bolts of purplish-black lightning continued to strike toward Taba Changfeng. Yi Chen easily resolved the 2 attacks. In the next moment, a golden cudgel suddenly appeared in his hand. Take a hit from my staff as well. The golden circlet wishful staff soared in the wind. It came crashing down at a terrifying speed. In front of Yi Chen's Rui Jingu Bang, Jiang Yuan's 300 zhang long spiked mace couldn't withstand a single blow. Boom! After a loud bang, the mace shattered. Han Jiang Yuan wanted to dodge, but he had already been locked onto by that powerful intent. His entire body stiffened, and he couldn't move. Puchi, the Grand Elder of the Han Jiang clan, Han Jiang Yuan, had been blown apart by Yi Chen's Rui Jingu Bang. The blood mist that filled the sky instantly exploded. Han Jiang Yuan's soul was destroyed. There seemed to be a small fragment floating in the void. Yi Chen casually grabbed it and saw that it was a jade cauldron fragment. It's your turn. Yi Chen turned around abruptly. The purple cloud fish was gathering lightning again. The previous scene had almost caused the purple cloud fish to hallucinate. Who was this person? He could actually swallow a sky full of lightning in one gulp, and the three of them, Han Jiang Yuanyi, had been blown apart in a single blow. This still caused the purple cloud fish to tremble in fear. Just as the purple cloud fish was about to go all out, Taba Changfeng, who saw that the situation wasn't good, actually turned around and fled. He was completely scared out of his wits. Who knew that Yi Chen didn't even look back? The God-Slayer broke through the void and pierced through Taba Changfeng's head, destroying his soul. Seeing Taba Changfeng's body falling, the purple cloud fish's expression changed. He gritted his teeth and knelt down in the void. He raised his hands above his head, and there was a jade cauldron fragment in his hand. Sir, I'm old and muddle-headed. I was blind to have offended you. I'm willing to offer you the jade cauldron fragment. At the same time, the Purple Cloud clan is willing to submit to you and be at your beck and call. Yi Chen shook his head. Why would I want an ant-like clan? Since you chose to fight me from the start, you should bear the consequences. Then you must bear the consequences. No. Sir, please spare my life. The purple cloud fish realized that things weren't going well and frantically begged for mercy. But it was too late. A black flame instantly ignited within his body. The flame started to burn from his 7 orifices. In just a breath's time, the purple cloud fish was burned into a pile of ashes and disappeared with the wind. Yi Chen grabbed the jade cauldron fragment. Without even looking at it, he broke through the void and left. Only the spectators were left behind. Everyone was dumbfounded and couldn't recover for a long time. What had they just seen? The ancestors of the 3 great clans, who had controlled the northern dynasty for hundreds of years, had been destroyed with a flick of a finger. Who was that young man just now? After the shock, everyone gradually looked in the direction of the 3 great clans. There was a different kind of light in their eyes. The hearts of the 3 great clans sank at the same time. The sky was falling. Chapter 1535. Yi Chen didn't care about the fates of the 3 great clans or the changes in the northern dynasty. He'd already gathered 3 of the 9 fragments. Once he found the other 6, he'd be done. He looked into the distance. His next target was the 5 great immortal mountains in the outer seas. Yi Chen traveled thousands of kilometers in the blink of an eye, breaking through the void and appearing above the vast sea in the far east. As far as he knew, the 5 great immortal mountains in the outer seas were actually the losers in the struggle for control of the continent. When they'd defeated Qin Hongtu and were about to split the spoils, they'd been attacked by the northern and southern dynasties. The 5 great experts had suffered grievous injuries. Disheartened, they'd left the outer seas and established the 5 great immortal mountains, never setting foot on the continent again. Of course, the seas had become a forbidden zone for the northern and southern dynasties. Who goes there? When Yi Chen appeared above one of the floating islands and unscrupulously released his aura, he immediately attracted the attention of the island's disciples. 2 disciples rushed into the sky, but just as they opened their mouths to shout, they suddenly fell from the sky as if struck by lightning. The fall had broken all the bones in their bodies. They were a little confused. Why had their cultivation suddenly lost its effectiveness? Yi Chen's entire body was shrouded in dazzling golden light. It was hard to see clearly, but it radiated endless light and heat, like a miniature sun. The reason was simple. Yi Chen had a dozen or so shrunken lava dragons in his hands. These lava dragons were also suppressed by this world and couldn't help Yi Chen in battle. However, the scorching heat on their bodies wasn't suppressed. Instead, it was even more ferocious. Yi Chen was a little interested. When he used a great mystique to compress the lava dragons' bodies infinitely, the heat they emitted actually increased exponentially. Yi Chen sat there motionlessly. He was using the old method, which was to wait for the rabbit to appear. The 5 great immortal mountains in the outer seas were separated by millions of kilometers. It would be a waste of time to go to each of them one by one. It was better to trap the floating islands and wait for the other islands to come to their rescue. The disciples of Sky Island soon realized that something was wrong. Ever since the dazzling light appeared in the sky, the temperature on the island had risen sharply. In the blink of an eye, the temperature had reached an unbearable level. Even the spiritual herbs on the island were withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Oh no, the island has been sealed. We can't get out," one of the disciples said in a panic. Originally, he was unable to withstand the high temperature and wanted to escape to the sea to cool off. However, he had encountered an invisible wall of air and was unable to escape. This incident finally alerted the island master of Levitating Island. Levitating Island Lord stared at the golden light in the sky. Even with his cultivation, he could barely see a blurry figure sitting in the golden light. "Who are you? Has Levitating Island offended you?" Alas, no matter how much the Levitating Island Lord asked, it was like throwing a stone into the sea. He did not get any response. "Bastard!" The master of Levitating Island was enraged. He attacked the formation madly, but the formation that trapped Levitating Island did not budge. It was unbreakable. Rumble! All of Levitating Island shook, but it was useless. The formation was not broken and the temperature on the island was still rising. "Island Lord, we have to think of a way. Many of our junior brothers can't hold on any longer." Levitating Island Lord's eyes flashed. "Don't panic. I'll get reinforcements right away." Levitating Island's distress signal was sent out. Yi Chen, who had covered the entire island with his divine sense, revealed a cold smile. It worked. All the disciples of Levitating Island waited anxiously. After about an hour, the sound of 4 people breaking through the air came from the sky. 4 figures with powerful auras appeared out of thin air. "Who are you? Why have you surrounded Levitating Island? Hurry up and release the formation." The 4 island lords surrounded Yi Chen from 4 directions and shouted angrily at the same time. "All right, as you wish." Under the 4 people's puzzled gazes, Yi Chen stood up. He put away the lava dragon and removed the immortal trapping formation. Everyone was puzzled. Was this person so easy to talk to? The scorching temperature on Levitating Island disappeared. All the disciples greedily inhaled the fresh and cool air. Levitating Island Lord rose into the sky. After greeting the other 4 island lords, he stared coldly at Yi Chen. "Boy, don't you owe us an explanation?" Yi Chen sighed. "You guys are too slow. You made me wait for an hour. Cut the crap. Hand over the jade tripod fragments and I'll spare your lives." "What? You're here for the jade tripod fragments? Who sent you? The Southern Dynasty or the Northern Dynasty?" Yi Chen shook his head. "I knew you wouldn't be honest. Let me take them myself." In an instant, Yi Chen's aura erupted, and huge waves rose on the sea. The God-Slayer in his hand swept in all directions. It was so fast that no one could react in time. Pooh! 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 5 consecutive sounds. Yi Chen instantly pierced the heads of the 5 island lords. He also picked up the 3 jade tripod fragments floating in the air. "Your cultivation is weaker than Taba Changfeng and the others, but you're so long-winded." Yi Chen didn't even look at the corpses of the 5 island lords. He tore through the air again. His last stop was Xingjing of the Southern Dynasty. "Report." The radar detected a person moving at high speed thousands of miles away. "His target is Xingjing. How much time do we have?" 3 seconds. "What? Could it be those 3 old farts from the Northern Dynasty? We can't care that much. Fire. Blow them up." Rumble. In an instant, 3 long-range destructive weapons were launched. With astonishing speed, they appeared in front of Yi Chen in an instant. Yi Chen looked at the 3 blue warheads approaching at high speed and finally smiled. "Starting a fight without any hesitation. It suits my personality very well. In that case, I'll let you fight to your heart's content. Whoosh! Yi Chen made his move. Suddenly, an invisible gentle force enveloped the 3 destructive weapons. Report. The long-range guidance systems of the 3 long-range destructive weapons have mysteriously lost contact. Report. The 3 destructive weapons have returned. The target is the launch site. Repeat. The launch site will be attacked in 2 seconds. Yi Chen stared at the weapons whose internal systems had been destroyed by him and returned faster than they came. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Rumble. The sky fell and the earth cracked. The earth shook and the mountains shook. 3 destructive weapons were detonated at the launch site in no particular order. The weapons in the warehouse exploded at the same time, instantly flattening the hollowed-out mountain. Smoke and dust rose into the sky and covered the sun. Countless people of the Southern Dynasty were killed by the explosion. The entire launch site was reduced to ashes. Even though the Southern Dynasty's Xinjiang was very far away, the violent explosion caused the entire city to shake violently. Cracks of varying degrees appeared on many buildings. What's going on? Is there a big earthquake? Chapter 1536. When they saw the scene on the huge screen, all the management of the Southern Dynasty in the battle command room were shocked. Everyone was dumbfounded and speechless. The commander-in-chief of the Southern Dynasty was the first to react. Notify the entire country immediately and enter a state of first-level combat readiness. The staff officer who was still beside him said awkwardly, Commander-in-Chief, this guy can't even be killed by long-range destructive weapons. Are we going to use our ultimate weapon, the apocalyptic thunderbolt? The commander-in-chief said with a solemn expression, we won't use the apocalyptic thunderbolt unless we have no other choice. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen had arrived above Xinjiang. Dozens of fighter jets rose into the air and confronted Yi Chen from a distance. At the same time, a majestic and powerful voice came from those fighter jets. Who are you? You've entered the territory of the Southern Dynasty. Retreat quickly, or we'll use our ultimate force. Yi Chen replied coldly, unless you're willing to turn the entire Southern Dynasty into a hell of death, you'd better not refuse my request. The commander-in-chief in the battle command room stared at Yi Chen with lingering fear and frowned for a moment. He did not want to compromise with Yi Chen, but the scene just now had been imprinted in his mind. If, by any chance, the apocalyptic thunderbolt could not kill this guy, then the Southern Dynasty would be unable to continue. In the end, the commander-in-chief said in a hoarse voice, Your Excellency, what do you want from us this time? We'll try our best to satisfy you if we can. The jade tripod fragments. Give me those 3 jade tripod fragments and I'll leave right away. As soon as the commander-in-chief heard the words jade tripod fragments, his pupils constricted. He had already expected that the other party would not come with good intentions, but he did not expect that they were here for the jade tripod fragments. At the commander-in-chief's level, of course, he understood what the jade tripod fragments represented. Of course, the commander-in-chief did not dare to reject Yi Chen directly. He rolled his eyes and said, I don't know why you want the jade tripod fragments, but we only have 3 jade tripod fragments. Why don't you go to the Northern Dynasty and the 5 great immortal islands first to find the other 6 fragments? If you can find them, we'll naturally give them to you with both hands. You said it yourself. You know the consequences of breaking your promise to me. Then, without waiting for the commander-in-chief to react, Yi Chen waved his hand. Immediately, 6 shards of the jade cauldron appeared and floated around Yi Chen. Did you see it clearly? The Northern Dynasty's 3 fragments and the 5 great immortal islands' 3 fragments are all in my hands. What else do you have to say? The commander-in-chief's pupils constricted when he saw Yi Chen collect the 6 jade tripod fragments floating around him. He knew best who had the jade cauldron fragment. Quickly go to the imperial palace and take out the 3 jade cauldron fragments and give them to him. Yes. After giving his orders, the commander turned his head and said through gritted teeth, "Hurry up and mobilize our spies in the Northern Dynasty. We need to find out what happened in the Northern Dynasty. Where did this guy come from?" A moment later, Yi Chun indeed obtained the last 3 jade cauldron fragments. After verifying the authenticity, Yi Chun floated away. The shadow that shrouded Xingjing of the Southern Dynasty finally dissipated. On a beautiful mountain thousands of miles away, Yi Chun sat cross-legged on a bluestone. In his hand, the 9 jade cauldron fragments were all suspended there. After these 9 jade cauldron fragments gathered, they formed a white jade cauldron the size of a human head. The white jade cauldron slowly rotated. Suddenly, there was a buzzing sound. In front of Yi Kitchen, a black portal that was taller than a person appeared. Obviously, this was a teleportation portal. It was unknown where the other end of the portal led to. Only Yi Chun had the guts to step in with a single step. When Yi Chun opened his eyes again, he found that he had appeared on an endless glacier. Not far away, there was a palace made entirely of icebergs. "A friend has come from afar, what a pleasure!" With a vast voice, the palace made entirely of icebergs appeared in front of Yi Chen in the blink of an eye, and the door of the palace opened automatically. Yi Chen slightly clenched his fist. After going through so many twists and turns, he was finally going to see the main character. Yi Chen strode into the palace. The huge palace was empty, and there was only a black ice throne at the end of the palace. On the throne, there was a figure shrouded in golden light. Yi Chen raised the Godslayer in his hand and coldly asked, "You are Qin Hongtu?" The golden figure froze for a moment, and then laughed and said, "Qin Hongtu, is it? It can be said that it is an alias I used hundreds of years ago. The gun in your hand has a familiar smell. If I didn't guess wrong, you came from the great desolate world, right?" Yi Chen's pupils suddenly shrank. Although he had guessed that this Qin Hongtu was not simple, he did not expect him to know about the great desolate world. He, sending you to kill me, but not telling me my true identity, what a joke! I am a clone of the great desolate world's heavenly Tao, are you afraid now? Heavenly Tao clone? Do you want to know my story? I can tell it to you. Back then. Sorry, I don't want to hear it. I just want to kill you. Yi Chen was very impatient. He had been trapped in this small world for too long, and it was not easy to find this guy. Why would he listen to his nagging here? Yi Chen stretched out a hand and suddenly flipped it over. Suddenly, a huge force came over. The entire palace began to shake violently. Boom! The black ice palace that had accompanied the heavenly Tao clone for hundreds of years, Qin Hongtu, collapsed. No matter how good the heavenly Tao clone's self-restraint was, he could not withstand it. Bastard, damn thief, you destroyed my palace the moment you came. You are courting death. Yi Chen laughed and said, "It's better to destroy everything. It's more fun to fight." Then, the God-Slayer in his hand pierced toward the heavenly Tao clone's head with an unparalleled sharp aura. The heavenly Tao avatar sneered and let out a roar. From the surrounding ice surface, dozens of black ice dragons that were as thick as water buckets rushed into the sky. The black ice dragons gathered, and each of them was 10,000 meters long. They shook their heads and wagged their tails as they pounced toward Yi Chen. Moreover, these black ice dragons that were originally inanimate actually carried information of the golden immortal level. Yi Chen put away the Godslayer in his hand and appeared 10,000 meters high in the sky in a flash. "Don't think that you are the only one with help." Roar. With a violent roar, the abyssal demon dragon that had been locked in the small world and had not been released appeared again. The surface of the abyssal demon dragon's body emitted a scorching heat. Once it appeared, the surrounding temperature increased by a lot. Chapter 1537. The abyssal demon dragon looked at the incoming abyssal ice dragons with a hint of contempt in its eyes. They looked powerful, but they were just lifeless dead creatures. Roar. Endless flames swept in all directions, and the terrifying heat wreaked havoc. When this ball of scorching hot fireball exploded in the middle of the abyssal ice dragons, the entire world of ice and snow shook. The abyssal ice dragons were blasted into smithereens, and countless ice shards fell from the void. As the flames dispersed, Yi Chen stepped on the abyssal demon dragon's huge head and rushed towards Qin Hongtu. The Godslayer's deathly light controlled the surroundings. No matter which direction Qin Hongtu dodged, he couldn't avoid it. It was also called the Godslayer. Qin Hongtu stared at Yi Chen and the huge abyssal demon dragon, and a hint of madness flashed in his eyes. Heaven and earth inverted. Following Qin Hongtu's roar, the earth shook and the sky turned upside down. The entire world of ice and snow turned upside down in an instant. All of the objects had become upside down and upside down. It was incomparably strange. The scene of Yi Chen and the abyssal demon dragon charging forward suddenly stopped. Moreover, the abyssal demon dragon didn't forget its huge body, and it was falling into the endless void below. Yi Chen's pupils contracted, and he recalled the abyssal demon dragon back into the mini-world in the next second. He controlled his body and stood firmly in the void. Countless objects in this world of ice and snow were falling into the endless void crazily. Just at this moment, a huge iceberg several 100,000 meters tall, under Qin Hongtu's control, came crashing down on Yi Chen with the momentum of Mount Tai. Under the huge iceberg that weighed hundreds of millions of tons, Yi Chen would be smashed into meat paste even if he had the body of the 12 ancestral witches. Seeing this, Yi Chen sneered, and the Godslayer in his hand turned into the Rui Jingu Bang. Then, the phoenix feather purple gold crown, the golden chainmail, and the lotus silk cloud-walking shoes automatically put on his body. In a flash, Yi Chen transformed into a towering giant. The Rui Jingu Bang in his hand grew even larger. Immediately after, Yi Chen hugged the gigantic Rui Jingu Bang and smashed it viciously towards the ice mountain. The speed of the Jingu Bang was so crazy that it seemed to explode the air. The entire small world of ice and snow whimpered as if it could not bear the burden. With a loud bang, it was as if thunder had descended from the ninth heaven. That huge iceberg had actually been completely smashed apart by Yi Chen's club. Countless ice blocks the size of pavilions flew back and smashed towards Qin Hongtu. At this moment, Qin Hongtu's face was as black as a black pot. He didn't expect that Yi Chen would still be able to deal with this situation calmly. Qin Hongtu said coldly, "Brat, I didn't expect you to be able to do this. I can give you a chance to pledge your loyalty to me. You will have the opportunity to live as long as the heavens and earth." Yi Chen sneered. "If you really had such ability, you wouldn't have been defeated by the combined forces of the southern and northern dynasties and the overseas immortal islands. You wouldn't have been forced to hide here like a stray dog. That's because there's a problem with my cultivation. Otherwise, with those ants." At this point, Qin Hongtu's words came to an abrupt halt, and his expression changed drastically. Yi Chen, on the other hand, sneered, "Is there a problem with your cultivation? Then let me see what the problem is." After speaking, Yi Chen traversed the void again. In an instant, he appeared on Qin Hongtu's left, and the Rui Jingu Bang smashed towards him. Qin Hongtu didn't dare to take it head-on. Even though he was the Heaven Dao clone, he had already fused with this physical body. If his physical body was destroyed, his remaining soul would be completely destroyed as well. Qin Hongtu's body flashed, and he appeared 10,000 miles away in an instant. Yi Chen followed closely behind. He tore through the void like a shadow, and the Rui Jingu Bang came crashing down again. Myriad clones! Qin Hongtu roared, and his entire body turned into a puff of black smoke and exploded violently. He turned into hundreds and thousands of figures that fled frantically in all directions. In that instant, countless figures with similar auras and auras appeared in Yi Chen's vision, rushing forward. Yi Chen's eyes of fire and gold instantly covered the entire area, and he found the Heaven Dao clone's real body. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Just when Qin Hongtu thought that he would be able to get away with it, Yi Chen suddenly appeared in front of his main body. Qin Hongtu turned his head in shock. In the distance, Yi Chen was still wielding the Rui Jingu Bang, sweeping in all directions. And there was another Yi Chen in front of him, holding the God-Slayer in his hand. Which one is real? Which one is fake? But then a huge pain came from his body, and Qin Hongtu lost the ability to think. In an instant, the God-Slayer stabbed out 100,000 times, leaving 100,000 holes in Qin Hongtu's body. Qin Hongtu's Heaven Dao clone's powerful soul was also pierced full of holes in that instant. Qin Hongtu's soul let out a shrill cry, and he wanted to escape. But it was a pity that the God-Slayer's terrifying pulling force sucked him away. Time and space seemed to be frozen in an instant, even though it was still in an inverted state. However, the various objects that were falling frantically were still in the void like a broken landscape painting. Yi Chen noticed that after Qin Hongtu died, there were 4 or 5 objects with strong light floating in the place where he disappeared. Yi Chen's 2 figures merged into one in an instant. He stretched out his hand and pointed at Yi Chen. The objects that Qin Hongtu had dropped were immediately stored in his mini-world. These were items dropped by the Heaven Dao clone, so they shouldn't be too shabby. Before Yi Chen could check out what they were, the world shattered like a mirror. The entire world shattered. In the next instant, Yi Chen appeared on the small mountain where he had entered the world of ice and snow. He was still sitting on the huge green rock. Now, I've completed my mission. As if to answer Yi Chen's question, the world rumbled violently. Whether it was the Eldritch world or this mini-world, all the mutant players remembered the system's world announcement in their minds. System announcement. Congratulations to player Yi Chen for successfully killing Qin Hongtu and completing the mission perfectly. He is rewarded with the pre-world spiritual treasure, Sky Flipping Seal, replica. Congratulations to him. The entire world was silent for a full minute, and then a huge commotion broke out. Chapter 1538. What the hell? I worked so hard to sneak into the Research Institute of the Southern Dynasty, and was about to find out Qin Hongtu's whereabouts. How could he have completed it? You're better off. I endured humiliation, and became the gigolo of Miss Han Jiang, one of the 3 big families of the Northern Dynasty. I'm so tired that I'm about to collapse. Get out of here. You're just showing off. Please tell me how to meet him face to face. Comparisons are odious. We are trying to find a way to remove the seal on our bodies, but Yi Chen has already completed his task. Could it be that his cultivation base is not sealed? I know Yi Chen. He's the emperor of the Samsara dynasty. I didn't expect him to complete the task. What the hell is the replicated primordial spiritual treasure flipping sky seal? Who knows? It's a primordial spiritual treasure. I heard that the flipping sky seal is in Guangchengzi's hands. I remember now. Today, someone suppressed the 3 big families of the Northern Dynasty and took away the fragments of the jade tripod. I felt something was wrong at that time. Now it seems that guy should be Yi Chen, and the key to finding Qin Hongtu is to pre-order the fragment. What's the use of hindsight? I also know that someone threatened Yen City and took away 3 fragments of the jade tripod. Even if you and I know, who dares to pull a tooth from the tiger's mouth? Yi Chen didn't care about what was being discussed in the World Channel. He looked at the connate spirit treasure in his hand, which was wrapped in golden light, with a smile on his face. A replicated flipping sky seal? That's interesting. I wonder if it's stronger than the Bell of Chaos of the East Emperor Tai. Boom! The flipping sky seal suddenly turned into a golden light in Yi Chen's hand. A towering mountain in the distance was smashed into pieces. When the smoke and dust cleared, it was a flat land. After confirming the power of the flipping sky seal, Yi Chen laughed. I don't care if it's replicated or not, as long as it's useful. The real one seems to be in Guangchengzi's hands. I'll test it with him when I have the chance. Then he took out the 5 light balls dropped by the doppelganger of the Way of Heaven. Yi Chen opened the 5 blobs of light and was pleasantly surprised to find that they were blueprints for a set of postnatal numinous treasure. It included weapons, armor, greaves, helmets, and boot. It was a full set of standard equipment. Moreover, the materials needed to forge these acquired spiritual treasure sets were not very difficult to find. Yi Chen was elated. He could finally give his Samsara Legion a makeover. Previously, the smithing masters in the small world could only forge divine-level armors. Now that they had the blueprint of the acquired spiritual treasure set, the smithing masters must be very happy. Sure enough, the smithing masters from the small world were stuck at the bottleneck of advancing to the next rank. As soon as they saw the acquired spirit treasure set's drawings, they were elated. Rest assured, Your Majesty. The materials we have now are enough to build 100,000 postnatal spiritual treasure sets, which will be delivered to Your Majesty in a month's time. Yi Chen smiled in relief and looked up at the void. It's time to leave. Then Yi Chen's figure gradually faded. In the blink of an eye, he left this world. When he opened his eyes again, he was already in the familiar untainted land. The overwhelming spiritual qi of heaven and earth came to him, which made Yi Chen feel very comfortable. After so many trivial things, he felt more comfortable in the untainted land. Yi Chen mounted the Abyss Demon Dragon and rushed toward the Samsara dynasty as fast as lightning. When the dissimulated people waiting outside the transmission point saw the huge fire dragon, they shouted excitedly, "Look, that's the Abyss Demon Dragon. It's said that it's the vehicle of Yi Chen, the emperor of the Samsara dynasty. The man on the dragon's head must be Yi Chen, right? I guess it's him. You've seen the system announcement just now. He has the primordial spiritual treasure flipping sky seal. How about we give it to him? I agree. As the saying goes, a man can't be rich without a windfall. If we can get the flipping sky seal, we'll be rich for the rest of our lives." Bah! You two are really blind. Why don't you take a look at yourselves? Not to mention Yi Chen's strength, even his mount, the Abyssal Demon Dragon, has the combat strength of a golden immortal. Even if he stood there and let you hit him, can you two little celestial immortals break his defense? The 2 cultivators at the celestial immortal realm were not convinced. They said, "So what? We can't beat him, but it doesn't mean that others can't beat him. That's a primordial spiritual treasure. I don't believe that those powerful figures in the untainted land won't be tempted." Yi Chen went to the Samsara dynasty as fast as lightning. The news about Yi Chen's return spread like wildfire. And the news that Yi Chen had the primordial spiritual treasure flipping sky seal also spread to the powerful figures in the untainted land from the mouths of the dissimulated people with ulterior motive. All of a sudden, countless ambitious people in the untainted land began to stir. Guang Qingzi, the head of the 12 golden immortals under the heavenly primogenitor, was practicing in the palace of Kongtong Mountain. Guang Qingzi had opened a Taoist sect here and was recruiting disciples. Hundreds of thousands of dissimulated people came to join him because of his reputation. However, Guang Qingzi was very strict in his recruitment of disciples. Most of these dissimulated people were outer disciples. All the dissimulated people racked their brains to join the inner sect. It would be best if they could become Guang Qingzi's personal disciple. At this moment, a dissimulated people came to the palace and knelt on the ground obediently. "Master, I'm sorry to disturb you. I have something important to report." Guang Qingzi raised his head and looked at the dissimulated people calmly. He said, "Come in and talk." After the dissimulated people came in, he looked up at the calm Guang Qingzi and suddenly shivered. He was under great pressure when facing Guang Qingzi. Since he was already here, he gritted his teeth and asked, "Master, I have a question. Do you have the primordial spiritual treasure flipping sky seal?" Guang Qingzi raised his eyebrows and stared at him coldly. He did not say a word for a long time. Just when the dissimulated people felt uneasy, Guang Qingzi said calmly, "What if I do?" The dissimulated people finally breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, "Master, we heard the heavenly ways message that Yi Chen, the emperor of the Samsara dynasty, was given the primordial spiritual treasure Flipping Sky seal by the heavenly way. I think there must be something wrong with this, so I came to report it to you." Guang Qingzi was stunned. He knew about the heavenly ways message. Since the dissimulated people came to the untainted land, the heavenly ways message had been passed down. Except for these dissimulated people, no one else could hear it. "It's Yi Chen." Guang Qingzi frowned. He remembered Yi Chen. Primeval Lord of Heaven had ordered him to draw this dissimulated people to his side. Guang Qingzi immediately communicated with the Flipping Sky seal in his body and found that the Flipping Sky seal was still floating in his mind. While Guang Qingzi breathed a sigh of relief, he also found something wrong. Chapter 1539. Guang Yuanzi noticed that the Flipping Sky seal was different from before. It seemed restless. The Flipping Sky seal trembled slightly, as if something was attracting its attention. "It's strange that there's a second person in this world who has the Flipping Sky seal." Guang Qingzi wanted to sit down and continue cultivating, but he found that he could not calm down. The appearance of two Flipping Sky seals had shaken his Taoist heart. Then he sighed and stood up. "I'd better go and check it out. What's going on?" At this moment, in Ji Meng's residence in the demon race's ancient heavenly court, the two shifter players knelt on the ground, trembling. They said loudly, "General, we are not lying. Yi Chen has already announced that he has obtained the heavenly spiritual treasure, the Heaven Flipping Seal. As long as you want to ask, you will know." In the middle of the hall sat a ferocious-looking man with a dragon head and a human body. He held a steel fork in his hand and looked very majestic. He was Ji Meng, one of the 10 demon marshals under Emperor Jun. Ji Meng's strength was very terrifying, but he had been troubled by the fact that he did not have a primordial spiritual treasure. After all, the number of primordial spiritual treasures in untainted land was limited, and most of them were already owned. The news brought by the two shifter players made Ji Meng feel a little excited. He was playing with a huge bronze wine cup in his hand. It was filled with amber wine that looked like fresh blood. There was a pungent smell of blood in the air. But Ji Meng liked the smell very much. After gulping down half a cup of wine, he said, "Yi Chen's name sounds familiar. Is he the mutant who had a conflict with Dong Wang Tai not long ago?" Behind Ji Meng, a big man covered in black armor stepped forward and said coldly, "Marshal, it's true. Yi Chen is the best among the mutants. The Samsara dynasty he founded is very powerful. Ordinary forces don't dare to provoke him. Even Dong Wang Tai suffered a loss at his hands." Ji Meng slammed the wine cup on the table and said coldly, "Are you all confused? This world is still the world of the demon clan. Do you think the human clan can overturn the world?" Ji Meng was right. The demon race still held the upper hand in the world. Psychologically, Ji Meng had absolute confidence. At this point, Ji Meng also stood up and turned to the people behind him. "Pick a few fierce generals and go out with me. If there's a chance, this marshal will regain the face that Dong Wang lost." Yi Chen had already returned to the sacred city of Samsara. He did not care about the uproar caused by him obtaining the primordial spiritual treasure Flipping Sky seal. The Samsara dynasty had never been intimidated by others before. They would deal with whatever came their way. Yi Chen sat upright in the throne room, the civil and military officials standing on either side of him. "Did anything happen in the Samsara dynasty after I left?" Chen Gong stood out and said, "Excuse me for a moment. It's not a big deal. It's just that 2 new countries have risen up next to us. Recently, they have been constantly testing and provoking us. We were just discussing sending an army to destroy them when Your Majesty returned. You should make the decision on this matter. There's no need to hesitate. Tomorrow, send General Guan Yu and General Zhao Yun to destroy the two countries directly. The dignity of the Samsara dynasty cannot be offended. The civil and military officials answered in unison, "Yes, Your Majesty." Yi Chen had always been swift and decisive. It only took him 2 hours to finish all the official affairs that had accumulated during this period. Now that Yi Chen was back, the whole Samsara dynasty seemed to have found its backbone again. Everyone was more confident and worked more cautiously and conscientiously. After finishing the official affairs, Yi Chen returned to his harem. Zhao Yu, Diaochan, Xiaolongnu, Empress Hari, and the other women were naturally very happy to see Yi Chen back. Yi Chen also took out some rare treasures that he had brought back from the small world and gave them to them. This made the women very happy. Reuniting after a short separation was inevitable. The next morning, Yi Chen, who was feeling refreshed, received unpleasant news as soon as he got up. "Your Majesty, we've just received news that a group of 300 patrolling soldiers in the Inua city of the Samsara dynasty have all disappeared. And they left a letter of challenge in the place where they disappeared." Yi Chen's face fell when he heard this. The Inua city was located in the westernmost part of the Samsara dynasty. It was 1,000,000 miles away from the sacred city of Samsara. It was quite remote. Who would lay hands on the soldiers there? As soon as Yi Chen opened the letter of challenge, a line of arrogant words came into Yi Chen's eyes. "Give me your primordial spiritual treasure flipping sky seal in exchange for the lives of your subordinate. I'll only wait for you for 2 days. If you don't come in 2 days, your subordinates will become our food." Yi Chen's pupils shrank, and he emitted a horrible killing intent. How could he be blackmailed by kidnapping and extortion? "Find out where the Black Tiger's mouth is." Guo Fengshao immediately said, "Your Majesty, we've found out that the Black Tiger's mouth is a steep mountain that is easy to defend and hard to attack. There's a group of bandits formed by individual cultivators of the monster tribe there. These individual cultivators of the monster tribe don't obey the rule of the ancient heavenly court. They advocate violence and always do whatever they want. They're a bandit force that gives everyone a headache." Yi Chen sneered. These individual cultivators of the monster tribe were so bold that they dared to threaten the Samsara dynasty. "Pass down my order. Sun Jian and Zhou Tsang, lead 100,000 soldiers to the Black Tiger's mouth and rescue the hostages." At Yi Chen's order, the huge machine of the Samsara dynasty began to operate at full speed. Sun Jian and Zhou Tsang took the command and led 100,000 soldiers to the Black Tiger's mouth in Inua city. In Yi Chen's opinion, the individual cultivators of the monster tribe were no match for the regular army of the Samsara dynasty. Besides, Sun Jian and Zhou Tsang had rich battle experience. They would definitely rescue the hostages successfully this time. Who would have thought that not long after Sun Jian and Zhou Tsang left, the two of them would return in a sorry state. Sun Jian and Zhou Tsang were covered with wounds and their armors were torn apart. They knelt down on the ground with red faces. Sun Jian gnashed his teeth and said, "Your Majesty, I've shamed you. Not only did we fail to rescue the 300 soldiers, but our 100,000 soldiers were also captured by them." Yi Chen's pupils shrank. He sat up straight and finally became serious. He asked coldly, "How many individual cultivators of the monster tribe are there in the Black Tiger's mouth? How could they wipe out your entire army?" Chapter 1540. At the mention of this, the two of them felt even more ashamed. "Your Majesty, we sent out scouts in advance. After some investigation, we can confirm that there are less than 100,000 demon itinerant cultivators in the Black Tiger's mouth." Yi Chen asked coldly, "Go on. What happened to you? Don't leave out a single word." Sun Jian said dejectedly, "Your Majesty, we were ambushed before we even reached the Black Tiger's mouth. They were 2 huge green-headed black eagles. They ambushed us. They could emit terrifying sound waves that could make people lose their ability to resist. In an instant, all our brothers lost their ability to resist. One of the green-headed black eagles took out a magic treasure and directly trapped 100,000 of our brothers inside. Only General Zhou Tsang and I were lucky enough to escape. Zhou Tsang also said in a buzzing voice, "Your Majesty, I can guarantee that the two green-headed black eagles are definitely at the peak of the gold immortal realm, and the magic treasures in their hands are extraordinary." Speaking of this, Zhou Tsang continued, "Your Majesty, one of the green-headed black eagles also asked us to bring you a message, saying that you only have 1 day left. If you don't see the primordial spiritual treasure flipping sky seal by then, all of our captive brothers will be eaten by them." Yi Chen narrowed his eyes slightly and quickly went through all the information about the mighty figures in the untainted land in his mind, but he had never heard of these two green-headed black eagles. Where did they come from? What was the magic treasure in their hands? It seemed that he had to make a trip there in person. After asking Sun Jian and Zhou Tsang to leave, a fist-sized flipping sky seal suddenly floated in Yi Chen's hand, emitting all kinds of mysterious auras. A cold smile appeared on Yi Chen's lips. "Since you all want to obtain my cyclic heavenly seal, let's see if you can receive it." At this time, in the mountains of the Black Tiger's Mouth, a huge hall of a mountain village was in full swing. There were bursts of noise, and hundreds of demon itinerant cultivators were dancing crazily here. In the middle seat there were two young people who were like the moon surrounded by stars. Their heads were wrapped in green headscarves. These lawless demon cultivators were all very respectful to the two young men. A plate of delicacies was placed on the two young men's table. Amidst a wave of compliments, it was clear that these two youngsters had drunk too much bejeweled nectar. Their eyes were a bit unfocused, and their cheeks were also a bit red. The leader of the Black Tiger Stockade, Black Tiger Butcher, was a black tiger that had turned into a demon. With a heroic laugh on his face, he held up another bowl of fine wine with both hands and personally brought it over. He said enthusiastically, "It is truly an honor for the two immortals to grace my Black Tiger Stockade with your presence. Little Black, let me offer you another bowl of wine." One of the young men said drunkenly, "Xiao Hei, you're a discerning one. You also know how to conduct yourself. We brothers are very satisfied with you, but we really can't drink anymore. Otherwise, if our master finds out, we won't be able to bear the consequences." Black Tiger Butcher's large eyes flashed with a trace of craftiness. He asked tentatively, "The two of you are already so powerful, may I ask who your master is?" One of the young men sneered and said, "Xiao Hei, don't think that we can't see that you are purposely taking advantage of our drunkenness to inquire about the origin of the sect. In fact, there is no harm in telling you, but we are afraid that you will be scared to death." Black Tiger Butcher smiled awkwardly and said humbly, "Masters, you must be joking. Although my cultivation is not that great, my courage is still not bad." The young man sneered and said, "Then you must stand still and listen carefully. We are brothers, a total of 4. We are the two youngest. Our big brother is called Daoist Jiayin, our second brother is Daoist Juanti, and our master is Patriarch Kuan Peng." The moment the young man said this, the surroundings became silent. All the demon cultivators who were eavesdropping were shocked. It was actually the demon master Kuan Peng. The name of the demon master Kuan Peng was well known throughout the untainted world. His two disciples were especially well known. However, he had never heard that the demon master Kuan Peng had a third and fourth disciple. However, no one dared to ask too much. Thus, they poured wine and dishes even more attentively. The two young men looked at each other and enjoyed the compliments even more. In fact, the two of them were afraid that someone would expose them, because they were indeed not Kuan Peng's disciples. They were just little boys who guarded the scriptures in one of Kuan Peng's caves. The demon master had many Kuan Peng cave abodes, and his whereabouts were uncertain. Some cave abodes had not been visited for hundreds of years. Over time, the two boys also obtained some fortunes from the scriptures they were guarding. This time, it was because they had heard that Yi Chun had obtained the innate spiritual treasure, the flipping sky seal, that they were tempted. If he could snatch the heaven flipping seal back and offer it to the demon master Kunpeng, he would be able to obtain the heaven flipping seal. Maybe the demon master Kunpeng would be happy and accept them as his disciples. In that case, wouldn't they have a meteoric rise? The young man on the left kept stroking a red jade gourd on his waist as he spoke. It was this red jade gourd that could store 100,000 soldiers of the Samsara Legion in one go. And this red jade gourd was a magic treasure that the Kunpeng liked. He often played with it in his cave abode. Now that the demon master Kunpeng was not here, the two boys stole his red jade gourd and went down the mountain to seize the innate spiritual treasure, the flipping sky seal. They knew that the Samsara dynasty was very powerful, so they did not dare to rashly confront them. They were also afraid that if they failed, the news would spread to the demon master Kunpeng's ears, and he would blame them. Therefore, the two boys decided to capture the soldiers of the Samsara dynasty and force Yi Chun to hand over the innate spiritual treasure, the flipping sky seal. They had heard that Yi Chun loved his soldiers so much, so they came up with such a plan. But now, a day had passed, and Yi Chun still did not show up, which made the two boys a little anxious. One of the young men said coldly, "It is said that Yi Chun loves his soldiers like his children. We have captured more than 100,000 of his soldiers. Why hasn't he come yet? Could it be that in his eyes, the heaven-flipping seal is more important than these 100,000 warriors?" Heihu Slayer snorted coldly and said, "Masters, don't overestimate human nature. There are too many people in this world who fish for fame. Since 100,000 people can't move Yi Chun, I suggest that the two masters walk around the major cities tomorrow and capture 1,000,000 people to see if he's willing to trade." "Don't bother. As you wish, I'm here." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.